In our last video, we spent $6.6 million here in Georgia to buy this land you see behind us with the goal of turning it into a $50 million ground up development. So in this video, we're here with our Senior Vice President of Development, and he's going to run us through the most expensive phase and costly phase of this development that you can see going on behind us.
Yep, so my name's Scott Urbizo, I'm with SR Homes. At this phase of development, we've gotten through our 7-day letter. We have finished clearing the site. They've hauled off all of the timber. We've since gone through and mulched the majority of the site. As you'll see behind us, identified areas to stage the mulch. We want to make sure that we don't cross-contaminate it with our good soil or even with the topsoil. We want to make sure that the majority of the mulch is hauled off site as intended.
So as you can see going on all around this site, there are bulldozers moving everywhere, which is what is known as the grading process. So Scott is going to explain to us what all goes into grading a development like this.
Once we are getting ready to start the mulching process, we take a bulldozer with a raker on it and we go through and rake the whole site. We'll show you what the raker looks like, but essentially what that's going to do is it's going to get all the roots, it's going to get all of the excess organic material out of the soil so that it can be mulched. Once we're complete with that, we go through and scrape the site. If you think of soil, it actually comes in layers. You've got layers of topsoil, you've got layers of good soil, and then sometimes you'll get into layers of partially weathered rock and then eventually rock. And so at this stage of development, we have scraped all of the topsoil from the site. You see a lot of beautiful orange dirt behind us, and you'll see where we're placing some of the darker colored soils. That would be the topsoil behind us. We find areas that are in common spaces, deep behind lots, to make sure that it's not near any type of structural area to place that topsoil. You can see that they run over it and they'll bring in a sheep's foot because we want to make sure that everything's still compacted to construction standards. So as I explained earlier about the raking process, this is a rake. This is what they use that digs just slightly into the soils after the site's been cleared to make sure that all the roots and organic materials is pulled out of the soil so that it can be mulched.
Why do you have to pull the organic material out and not be, like, why can't you just mulch right over it?
So it needs to be clean when it goes through the mulcher, otherwise the mulch will be contaminated with soil and it's more difficult to haul out and get to where it needs to be. Another phase of grading that we're in is the cut fill stage. So the cut fill stage is a stage at which we are cutting part of the site down and filling part of the site up with dirt. As they're filling, we've got a geotech out here that's monitoring the compaction to make sure that, again, we're meeting county and construction standard where any structural fill is to be placed. If you want to think about the cut and fill, it's kind of like building a 3D puzzle, right? As you're cutting down in another area, you're filling up so that the site balances. In any given site, you might have 60,000 yards of cut, you might have 50,000 yards of fill. If that were to be the case, you would have excess dirt, right? So you're cutting more dirt than you're filling. What we'll do to rectify that situation is that we would then raise the site by a certain amount to make sure that at the end, everything balances. So at this stage of grading, precision is important. We want to make sure that at the end of the project, road elevations, house pad elevations, the road layout, and then also, most importantly, probably is the direction of water flow is as intended. We go through a lot in the process of engineering and planning the development to make sure that all of those things are consistent when we finish the project. All of the equipment that you see around us right now has GPS on it. So the operator on the inside knows exactly what elevations they're touching with either the dozer blade or their excavator to know whether or not they've met the elevation that they've intended to get to. So behind us, you'll see that this excavator is filling an off-road dump truck. So this is where we're cutting into the ground. And then this off-road dump truck is going to go over into a fill section, which is over here on the back side of the site, where you're going to see that it's offloading, it's being spread into layers, and then you'll see the sheep's foot behind us, which is vibrating as it's compacting the soils to make sure that we're getting to the required compaction in those structural fills.
So now that we've gotten an overview of everything that's going into the grading process, we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up after all the grading is completed. And if you want to see that in the next video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. But Scott's going to give us a little bit of a preview right now.
Yeah, so as you can see around us, we've had material delivered for the next phase, which is utility infrastructure. Storm and sewer is what we have on site. Once we get roads installed, you'll see the water material coming in after that.